The Meaning to an End by Kingston on AO3. Episode 6. Chapter 3. Is that what you truly wish? Uraraka turned to look at Toga, who had taken a seat at the edge of the former's bed. No such a thing. I already told you that I wish to leave more than anything else. Then why are you not leaving now? What causes you to remain here? And do not tell me that it is your duty or your ties to the kingdom. If that were so, then I'd help you back to the kingdom instead of leaving you here. Toga stood from the bed to approach Ochako. Because such a thing would be improper. Uraraka replied easily. There was a low, wicked feeling that suggested their house of cards was soon to shake and fall, like an uneasy piece that reached and that was going to be tested. Me walking alongside you, taking you to your homeland, is improper? Toga asked. No. Me leaving the tower without my princess. I am meant to wait for him, and marry into his kingdom, as he into mine. A loveless marriage with a man who only wants you to bear his children, bear his name and his future legacy? Would it be so wrong to leave with me? And you say leaving with a prince would be loveless? What would it be between you and I, then? If I leave beside him, at least my future, and the future of my kingdom, by extension, is secure. To us, that is to say my feelings are not considered. It is my nature to fall hard and fall fast, Uchako. Why else would I return despite the blatant disregard for my feelings you showed? I cannot help it. Uraraka furrowed her brows. You insist you love me? Yes, Toga replied. Why is such a thing so hard for you to accept? Because it is unheard of. A princess leaving with not a prince but a rogue? The unnoticed to be feared, as to keep your kingdom safe. Tell me, Chako, how much harm would this do? Toga gestured to herself. A small smile was forced upon her face, as if anything more would hurt her, but anything less would cause her to shatter. Uraraka felt her heart ache for this woman, who looked to be in such pain. None, Uraraka found herself saying. I was not speaking with the desire to hurt you. I want you to know of people as I do places. If you're willing, Himiko, I wish to learn. Uraraka offered her hand out to Toga, mirroring as Toga had. She held her breath in as Toga looked at her. Forgive, but do not forget, Toga said after a moment. Though learn what? Of me? Yes, of you, and your world, your family. Is that a strange thing to ask? No, I do not mind speaking of my life, Toga said. She looked out of her depth, as if this were the only outcome she was not expecting. Uraraka gritted her teeth. Whether it was the fault of herself or the kingdom of this content, Uraraka was angered that Toga was made to feel outcasted. It was a feeling Uraraka could sympathize with. May I sit? Uraraka gestured behind Toga, where they sat previously. Toga nodded curtly. Uraraka walked past her, situating herself comfortably on the bed. Toga treaded the chair, pulling it slightly. I have no quorum sitting with a friend, Uraraka said. Are we? Toga asked, as she pushed the chair back under the table. Her voice was hopeful. Uraraka showed her a soft smile. Perhaps I've talked to you just as much as my brother by this point. You're a comparison, if nothing else. Toga gave an airy chuckle. I wonder about that brother of yours. He sounds like a tad dull, if I may be so bold. Not dull, Uraraka said. Tarquindural, but brash at the same time. He is quite the character. Sounds so, Toga replied. The bed dipped beside Uraraka as Toga took a seat. I have several brothers. By blood? Uraraka asked. Toga shook her head. Brothers in legion. I am close with a few, though we are many in total. Your brother reminds me of my own, Dobby. Uraraka furrowed her brow. A curious name. It is not His birth one, but we do not question it. He wishes to cut ties with his family, as do I. Toga said. She continued. He is quick to anger, but caring all the same. He was there with me when our mentor fell, as we all the others. I am relieved to hear you had people to return home with. Uraraka found herself saying, solitude is terrible. I cannot fathom it, coupled with loss. Our mentor. Toga's gaze fell to the ground. He was a questionable man. He brought us together, taught us all we know, saved me from imprisonment alongside Jin, yet I believed his goals were far more selfish than the rest of us originally thought. When Yagi struck him down, I rejoined despite the headache of loss. Uraraka put a hand to her back, letting it drift in small circles. I do not think you have it in you to relish in the death of a well-intentioned man. I trust your side of this tale. Toga smiled, soft and fragile. Uraraka fought back the urge to take her face in her hands and push her thumbs across the rogue's cheek. I appreciate that. But of course, a more light-headed story, perhaps? Perhaps, Toga replied. But I find myself wanting to know more about you, Ochako. She looked curiously towards Toga. What stories do I have to entertain you? None, perhaps, but I do not seek stories. Tell me, what place would you first want to visit when you leave? Uraraka closed her eyes, looking back onto the bed. She felt a dip as Toga copied her, now laying side by side. An orchard. Fruit? Toga asked. Uraraka heard the crinkle of shifting bedsheets. Precisely. I wish to pluck an apple from the tree and eat it fresh. They're no good by this time. Katsuki can fetch one for me. I've had them from jars. Katsuki? Toga asked. Your brother? Yes. Uraraka said. Toga hummed, a sound of acknowledgement. Several silent breaths between them. I can take you to one. I enjoy the pomegranates from the neighboring orchard. Uraraka let out an amused sigh. Another attempt to sway me? Princess? Toga gasped. Uraraka couldn't resist, cracking her eyes open and turning to face the other woman. I would never dream of influencing you in such a way. The smile you wear convinces otherwise, rogue. Blasphemy! I wear a smile because I am fortunate enough to sit beside a wonderfully beautiful princess, and for not a reason more, dearest Ochako. I find that to be blasphemy. Uraraka laughed lightly. She busied herself thinking of something other than the closeness to her face to Ochako's, or how in their bantering their hands had ended up almost atop of one another. She stood from the bed, much to Toga's dismay. I believe I'll do some. Some? Toga asked. Packing? Uraraka said quietly. I'll gather the necessity items for travel. To deem the normal smile the rogue wore to be a grin would discredit the look on her face after Uraraka announced her departure, as if someone had poured hot coal across the bed. Toga sprung up, eyes wide. Travel? She repeated, just as quiet as Uraraka had. Travel. I wish to leave with you come morning. Perhaps fruit for breakfast, if the distance isn't too great. Uraraka mused. It is not, Toga affirmed. She wrung her hands together, gloves squeaking against each other. Uraraka watched on curiously, observing the sudden jolt of energy the rogue possessed. She looked as if she were ready to pounce forward, towards Uraraka. Are you all right? Excellent, Toga nodded sharply. Thrilled you're to be accompanying me to the Leech. You, Uraraka corrected. I am traveling with you. If you happen to travel with the League, so be it, but I refuse to sign my name with them. You do not wish to be a victor? Toga asked. Her voice carried a lighter tone, like the music of a lyre. Uraraka wished to go with her, if only to hear her continue speaking. No, Uraraka answered. She turned towards the balcony. Natsuki left his satchel after the last visit, so I will use his. There was a pause. Then, in a small voice, Uraraka wondered aloud. Ah, I forgot about his visits. And about what he would think. I do not want to leave him behind. Does this presence change your decision? Toga asked. Uraraka wondered if she herself were the witch, for her words drained the life from Toga just as a spell. I am unsure, at the very least. It postpones our departure. I wish to speak to him, just once more. I do not think I could further delay my travels, for my own sake. Uraraka admitted. He shall arrive in 3 days' time. Could I trouble you to stay nearby until then? The morning of the 4th day I shall be ready. Uraraka nodded. I can grant you the time. I will spend the time speaking with my own family. They typically do not mind when people come and go, though I suspect it will be different for you. If possible, I do not wish for them to know who I am. Speak of me not as a princess, but just another person. Count your blessings, Ochako, for there are no paintings of you in the palace, save for the one sketched when you were a small child. They will learn nothing from me. By the blood of Christ! Bakugou yelled, his arms crossed swiftly in front of him, jaw gritting. I take a month's leave back to my land, and you fall in with an enemy of the kingdom? His disapproving snarl into a proud smirk. This is why we are kin. Uraraka stood from her bedside, letting out a breath. Thrice damned prince, you make me regret telling you anything. Ah, you wound me, sister. He laughed deeply, his arms falling from the cross position, one palm hammered into Uraraka's shoulder in a place for gesture, as she walked past, earning a swat of her own in reply. This rogue you speak of, though? Are you sure you can trust her? Yes, Uraraka said at once. I am. We leave at sunrise. He hummed. The kingdom? Are you going to abandon it? No, Uraraka said. Nothing of the sort. I will return by the time I am needed. It matters not whether you do, Bakugou said. As if he'll care enough to notice your absence before he's needed your presence. I still do not wish to abandon a kingdom that will rely on me. I should be leaving now, yet I cannot find it in myself to stay. I packed my clothing and made arrangements with her near ready. Uraraka said. She paused by the table, eyeing the filled scatchel. I asked her to stay nearby until you arrived. To say goodbye, or to relinquish your food supply? Bakugou asked. He didn't seem angry about her departure, more wishful, or perhaps encouraging. She didn't know him her entire life, yet Uraraka had a hard time placing the expressions he wore, like a mix of many different ones. He cobbled together to create something regretful but proud at the same time. Both? Uraraka declared. Hadn't thought of the food. I suppose that would be a good thing to bring along. Huh. Bakugou cut his eyes across the room. Obviously, you fool. You wish to starve mere days into your world's travels? I will not be finding you monthly to deliver anymore. Oh, why not? Uraraka teased. Do you like the navigational skills? Christ, I'm remaining neutral on the subject, yet you taunt me still. Bakugou said. Uraraka's smile fell. Neutral? I have never heard you remain that way. Conflicted, he said sharply, as sharp as fangs that adorned a navy blue mask. Your family. I do not wish to see you go, yet you are. I wish to do as you wish to, but I cannot stop the feeling of loss. There was a pause, a sad look about him for a moment, while he peered at his boots. Well, I suppose I may be able to move on from this chore. She stepped forward, touching a hand to his shoulder. Thank you, Uraraka simply said, for the company you provided, the food you brought, and the blessing you've given. Bakugou nodded once, curtly, a ghost of a smile on his face. I suppose I'll see you once you return. Of course, Uraraka replied quickly. Your kingdom will be the last I write to upon my arrival home. His smile grew warier at that. As it should be. Here. With no further flourish, he pulled his own, newer satchel from his shoulder and offered it out. It would be foolish of me to remove the contents and fill your pantry, only for you to pack it back into the satchel. Will you allow me to keep it? Uraraka said, as she accepted the bag. It was heavier than expected. and further prove the strengthening of Bakugou. She wondered if she would have thrown the pair of satchels down the tower before she climbed down from it.
If not, I reckon you steal it,
he replied. He turned a pointed look towards the table where his old satchel sat filled. Uraraka laughed. You left it behind, though no fault of my own. Blame yourself. Bakugou let out a sigh at that, though whether it was directed at Uraraka or the world was unknown. A gust of wind trickled through the tower, sweeping away a sigh and ruffled the vines that grew in the tower's walls. Soon, Uraraka reminded herself freedom was approaching.
Stay safe,
Bakugou said abruptly. Uraraka tore her gaze from the window to his unreadable expression.
I'll strangle you and that rogue if you are injured.
We'll be all right, Katsuki, Uraraka said. She opened her arms, an invitation. Bakugou stared at her, his brows furrowed, unmoving. Come on, she chuckled. He crossed his arms, denying the embrace.
I won't miss you that much.
Uraraka stuffed quickly, turning away. Fine then, I'll finish unpacking and take my leave.
Night falls near. I suppose you should.
Bakugou made his way to the window, boots thunking against the wooden floor in its steady rhythm. Uraraka began looking through the food contained in the satchel, only pausing when she heard the footsteps halt. She turned to look over his shoulder and was met with the prince facing her. One of his arms was by his side, but the other was stretched out. He nodded his head, a gesture for her to draw closer. Uraraka stifled a laugh and walked over to the window where he stood. She didn't give him any grief over it as she approached. A gesture symbolizing their relationship and time spent together was where their final goodbyes were spoken. Bakugou slung his arm around her shoulder, refusing to completely embrace her. Undeterred by the unbothered facade he put up, Uraraka clasped him tightly. I'll see you when I return, Uraraka said softly.
I'll be waiting,
Bakugou replied.
Until then, I have no one to make listen to my complaints.
Uraraka smiled at that. I believe that you will be the only good thing about returning home. Your uncontrollable bashfulness. With that, he backed up and pulled a hand to the windowsill.
Tell the rogue that she best take care of you, lest I find her and turn the bounty in myself.
Oh, hush, Uraraka said. She is a good one, I assure you.
Damn, gotta love oldie time speech. Okay. I am glad that Bakugou's okay with it. I'm glad Baku's like, yeah, okay, yeah, fine, leave, fuck off. I don't care about you, go the fuck away. I also do like that little moment you added, Kingston, where he's like, ugh, okay, fine, hug me. All right, there you go. I'm not gonna indule you with both my hands, just one of my hands. I don't care about you. This is for you, not for me. Yeah, sure, Bakugou. Whatever helps you sleep at night. Whatever helps you sleep at night. But this was really interesting. I really like this so far. And are we gonna get a smooch now? Sorry. I really want them to smooch. Normally you're faster pacing than this. Like, actually. Like, okay, look, I know we're only in chapter 2 out of like... There's 7 chapters. Hold up. Or chapter 3, not chapter 2. There's 7 chapters. We're technically speaking already past the halfway point. So where the fuck is the kiss? Where is it? Clearly Toga has already fallen deeply and madly enough. Where the smoochies? Smoochies? Mwah. Chapter 4. Sort of important note at the end. Nothing bad. Just a scheduling / chapter update. Oh, I don't need to look at that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm really interested in this next one. This next one is... Oh my god, this next one is a short chapter. That's weird. Okay. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.